Good, glorious day to everybody. How are you? I'm going to start on some talks dealing with Nichiren. So let's first of all, Daimoku Sanshu. Nam Myoho Renge Kyo Nam Myoho Renge Kyo Nam Myoho Renge Kyo Nam. All right. So, the overarching reason that I've endeavored to do all of these videos on Buddhist scholarship is because as I started getting really serious into my practice and took my vows at Myohoji Temple in Etiwanda, California, and back in the 80s. I noticed there's a lot of focus, whether it's in a sect, even multiple sects of Nichiren, but sects of all schools, as well as lay organizations that really discourage membership from looking elsewhere than their own specific organization for information, any kind of information on whether it's Nichiren and his disciples or the development of certain sects or Buddhism in general. There's like this really guarded attitude about our way is the way and everybody else is full of baloney. And I have always found that since I was raised Roman Catholic in French country, and see, just saying those words have a lot of specificity to them, don't they? Very alarming. The thought that the first thing that you're going to demand from me as a member isn't your promised assistance and teaching, but rather my allegiance to solely you, an organization, a person. There's something inherently backwards and totalitarian, authoritarian, dictator-like method to that I find personally repulsive. If you want to turn me off of anything you're asking of me, tell me firstly that my allegiance is demanded, and you will immediately drop kick my mind right out of it. Do not do that to me. And I find it alarming, although completely within the boundaries of expectation, that our world today seems to be leaning in the way of this dictatorial authoritarianship. And if you do any kind of study on authoritarian regimes or authoritarian mindsets, you will find that it's 90% the followers and only 10% the leadership that demands this sort of paradigm. Because authoritarianship requires that the populace or the majority wants to be told what to do. They don't want to be held responsible for their actions. They don't want to have to. It's ironic. It's ironic that the very totalitarian leaders want to demand such allegiance and at the same time scream and yell about like Mitt Romney's indignation at 47% of the population of the United States being sloth and living off the what's the expression? Anyway, their very leadership is because of that wanton bunch of people that want to be led. So why are they angry at it? It's their freaking base. Okay. Anyway, I'll get off the politic, but it's kind of a good introduction to what I'm going to talk about today, because if there was any figure in the history of Buddhism other than Shakyamuni himself, who was extremely revolutionary, and a lot of people don't know that, but if you care to study it, you'll find that there were many, many threats on his life and many oppositions, and from the government to the people, because he was teaching the exact opposite. You see, he was not an authoritarian, but he did have the ultimate answer. Quite a powerful position to be in, but we're talking about 2,600 years ago in India, who even today is a very kind of slave mentality with their caste system, the untouchables all the way up to the glorious Brahmin class, right? And they're still that way today, extremely racist within their own uh, uh, citizenry, you know. So Nichiren, I really got into the Nichiren sect, and it didn't take me long. Within the first year, because I'm a knowledge hound. Not all of us are, but this is my whole purpose, as I was starting to say, coming full circus. I am a bit of a circus. But coming full circle, um, that, see, my mind, I think, I only respect scholarship as far as opinions and things go. I like to research things because I like to know for myself. I don't like to be told what to think. And I think as human beings, we all share this. So it's confusing to me that we are in the situation we are today with our leadership in this country, the United States specifically, but moreover across the world. There's dictators all over Africa and even in Europe and Asia, all kinds of authoritarian regimes, and it's very alarming. But it was also predicted that we would be in this latter age of the Buddhist teachings in a world situation of greed and anger and stupidity, not just ignorance. Ignorance is okay. It just means you don't know something. But stupidity means that you're ignorant by will, that you're forcefully ignorant. And that's quite a condemnation of the way people think. I don't want to accept that. I certainly don't want to be part of that. And so this video series is twofold: to educate, certainly. Um, and, well, I guess 1B would be that it serves my own purpose of understanding more deeply um, what these teachings really mean and how to accomplish them. Oh my goodness. Um, what good is of teaching if you can't, I was going to say inculcate, but even more than that, make it a fiber of your being, right? So, and bridge the gap between those that are motivated, as I am, to study and learn, and those who they're not so motivated. They're or all of you authoritarian people out there who want to be told what to do. I'm not telling you what to do. That's not why I'm doing these videos. What I want to do is inspire you and offer you a place that's almost anonymous. I mean, I'm in a video. It's not like we're face to face. So, and I've got your undivided attention because you can't talk back to me or interrupt me, which, I don't want to use that egotistically, but I think as a teaching tool, uh, I'm hoping that, at least for me, my observation of watching other people in videos, uh, is that I shut that critical side of me down about questioning everything that's said, and I get more into the passenger seat of, okay, and I actually listen more intently into what is your full position when I'm watching a video. And so I'm hoping to be that person because I think that way I can create somewhat of a bridge between what you can easily perceive when you hear terms like the 84,000 or the 80,000 teachings of Buddhist scholarship, uh, can be quite overwhelming. Like, how can I ever know all of that? But if I can break it down into more current terms, so it's not so, there's a lot of words in these teachings, and a lot of it is flowery. And because you have to understand, 2,600 years ago, people, especially with the caste system, Shakyamuni was trying to teach this so that it wasn't just some particular caste of people that would benefit from this knowledge, but everyone, no matter what their status was, no matter what their caste, no matter what their level of uh, desire to learn, or just from the common folk. I hate to use that word, but the vernacular of the common people is and was certainly much more separated from the vernacular and the way people spoke in their education entirely from those in the top levels of society. Well, he didn't want to teach that way. He wanted, if this was a true teaching, he wanted everybody, all sentient beings, to understand how to liberate themselves from suffering. That shouldn't be a matter of caste. It should be just a human desire. So, anyway, after the last, I don't know, 20 or so videos on specific sutra and so forth, what I'm trying to demonstrate is that there's a path, just like in teaching mathematics, and you've heard me say this before. If a teacher walked in with a calculus lesson for kindergartners, uh, it would be like bringing the Lotus Sutra to somebody who doesn't know much or is ignorant of the 80,000, which is an illustrative number, of the number of teachings of Buddha, and that he himself, Shakyamuni, taught in levels like math. You got to understand how to manipulate numbers with addition, subtraction, multiplication, blah, 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 before you can learn algebra. And certainly you need to know the writing and the conceptual basis for how algebra works before you can approach calculus. So to me, it's unfair that you have so many groups in the world, whether they're organized Buddhist um, lineage, like in sects and temples, or they're outside lay organizations, which can be even more powerful because they're in your home. This walk in with the calculus of Buddhism and say, do this, and everything will be great. Well, for the extremely authoritarian people out there, that may work, and that's okay. Because I'm going to read you something today, right from Nichiren's mouth, that actually says that if you're not the scholarly type, then the best thing you can do is just this. And maybe that's okay for you, and I don't have any bones with that. But those among you who have the least spark, all the way to full-fledged scholar, whatever, but if you have the least bit of curiosity beyond simply chanting Namu Myoho Renge Kyo, and in the back of your mind you're going, why am I doing this? How does this work? Why does this work? Which why is kind of a funky question. It assumes a purpose outside of you. So I'd rather steer you away from the whys. I have a whole video on that. Um, and a much better question is how does this work? You know, that question may scare some people. They just want to chant. You know what? More power to you. As long as you stay glued to the idea that this is life changing, which is the whole purpose of this practice, and you practice it with conviction, then I got no problem with it. But again, I'm not built that way. I'll do it for a while just because I have so many assurances that it will do something. And believe me, in my life, it did very quickly. You know, a lot of people call it like beginner benefits, that kind of thing. But enough realizations that I thought that my motivation to be scholarly was sparked even more. And this is why I immediately started studying broadly all over the place, which the leadership of the organization I was in didn't quite appreciate because, anyway, many reasons for that. So, uh, as I have already been talking about the perfection of wisdom, the Surangama, all of these Mahayana, and I've actually talked about some Hinayana teachings as well. I'm trying to put my scholarship where my mouth is. Not that that always functioned well, but as an introduction to this video, I want all of you to understand that I'm at that point right now, and I may go back to previous sutra and so forth and start this ramp again. But having done a 6-part series on the Lotus Sutra, I think now I are poised to reinvestigate, or many of you for the first time perhaps, the writings of Nichiren Daishonin and why and maybe shed some light on why he's known as such a reformer and a strong bodhisattva force for all of us to learn the correct Buddha teachings. And so I've picked out one of his writings that I think is pertinent to everything in the last 40 videos that I've been talking about, or 30 or 40. With this position A of the Hinayana teachings, and I know that's a prickly subject for some, and the way Nichiren's scholarship comes through in his writings. But I'm a big proponent, and you heard me say it before, that if you don't study earlier scholarship, earlier sutra, earlier commentary, earlier scholarship like Nagarjuna, Bodhisattva Nagarjuna, or I pick out Nagarjuna because he was very critical. Again, a scholar, not just an interpreter. Or Chi Chin Tai, also amazing scholar, questioning and reordering and shedding a strong light on the lineage of the correct teaching of Buddhism and where ego branched it out, so to kind of get rid of the chaff and focus on the core of the teachings, leads us all the way to Nichiren. So there are others, but there are several points within the last couple of millennia of the transfer of these teachings into the latter age today, where there's tremendous scholarship that had to straighten things out, because like all things, they tend to get interpreted and then create a new branch of thinking, and it becomes either includes contradictory information or just plain bad or other egotistic reasons. So here we are again, back at that golden word of scholarship. Let's know what is the real thing, okay? And Nichiren is certainly the most modern, even though he's a 13th century scholar. He's the most modern teacher we know, from within the ranks of Buddhism itself, um, who puts or is dedicated to put a lot of order to this. And just like Shakyamuni and Nagarjuna and Tendai, uh, attracted a lot of panic. There were attempts on his life, just like Shakyamuni and others. Um, because people, we tend to settle into little comfort zones and just, and unfortunately, that leads us astray, or at very least, destroys our depth of understanding, which in effect destroys the whole practice for each individual. And the whole practice of this individual practice, very self-motivated, self-initiated practice, is for us to achieve liberation from the mundane. So to make the practice mundane, yikes, that's a real problem. Um, so that's why I'm here. I'm here to just throw my hat into the ring and say, look, let me share whatever I can dig up, and I'm going to dig. That's what I do. And my whole life, no matter what I've done, inside and outside of Buddhism, has somehow positioned me in the middle of not opposing but disparate forces or camps. I'm always the kind of guy who's bridging things. Like when I worked in IT and I talked to the people that worked in the office, and they were telling me what they expected their purchasing app to be able to do, and flick a button and be able to produce this, and then go and talk to the software developers who speak a completely different language in their minds and on the computer, and explain to them how things should function so that the user could perceive it in the way that they think and speak. I've always been that guy. So it's put me in with the developers, but I'm able to translate, if you will, the mindset of the one group with the other to create functional bridges. That's in sports, in computers, I was a tutor in high school for math students and science students. I'm always that person in the middle. So why not take advantage of my nature, right? This is what I'm thinking. And be that bridge for people who are just introduced or are ignorant of a lot of information in Buddhism, and bring them up to the scholarship of the very pinnacle of Buddhism. That's my nature myself. Why not share it? So here we are. Now let's get into it. Enough blah, 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 right? So, the writing, if you just read Nichiren right out of the box, a lot of it just goes, and a lot of the terminology, okay, and you go on, and then it says something concrete and go, okay, I'll do that. And that's okay. But for me, it's not okay. For me, I like when he says certain things to have some memory of what he's referring to, because then that creates a good solid step ladder. I'm not just hovered and suddenly end up on the roof. I understand when you tell me about that bent third step on the ladder so I don't tweak my ankle. If I refer to that from the roof, what do you mean? But if I'm going up the ladder, I sure as heck want to understand. So, again, that's how I think. So, this writing is the Tripitaka master Shan Wu Wei. And Nichiren takes every opportunity, no matter what the title is, to demonstrate his scholarship and why he's saying what he's saying. In fact, a lot of times what he's saying has little to do with what he's, what he himself, whatever his opinion is more based on, he's more like an attorney in court. And he's holding court, and he's saying, Your Honor, Exhibit A, Exhibit B, and then if you'll allow Exhibit B, because this, that, now you get his opinion, his scholarship. Um, but these points of evidence he throws out are very important. And once again, if he throws out some points of evidence and you go, okay, that's a bunch of other stuff I don't know, it's not truly helpful in achieving the objective of the court, and that is to make a just decision, an informed decision. And by the way, as a U.S. citizen, an informed public is what we're supposed to be provided, an education, so that we can be informed by our free press and our education, so that we can understand how best to lead this country. And that's been dismal over the last few decades. And so when I talk about scholarship in Buddhism, that's what I'm talking about. You may go through your life chanting Namu Myoho Renge Kyo till you pass away and have a wonderful result from that. And that's wonderful for you. But to me, if I don't know what Namu Myoho Renge Kyo represents, if I'm just told that Namu Myoho Renge Kyo means this is what we do, and this is a lotus flower, and isn't that beautiful, and da. I understand the poetry of it. I understand the beauty conceptually of it. But come on, there's more to it than a lotus flower. What's going on? That's me. I'm curious. You may not be. So make your own choice. So I'm going to get right into this because very early on, he makes a statement in this dialogue or this writing about exactly what I'm just talking about. So here we go. The Lotus Sutra is the heart and core of the sacred teachings expounded by Shakyamuni Buddha during the course of his lifetime, the foundation of all the 80,000 doctrines of Buddhism. Obviously his opinion. So now, having made that opening argument, he's going to start taking that apart so that you can understand what he's truly getting at. The various exoteric and esoteric sutras, such as the Mahabharayana, the Flower Garland, the Wisdom, and the Profound Secret Sutras, spread in China, India, and places of the Dragon Kings, and the world of heavenly beings. In addition, there are the teachings expounded by the Buddhas throughout the lands of the 10 directions, which are as numerous as the sands of the Ganges, or as the dust particles of the land. Now, why does he say that, sands of the Ganges, dust particles of the land? I mean, that's flowery language again, and you can get some meaning from that. But the deeper meaning is that he's quoting the exact teachings of Shakyamuni back in his day when Shakyamuni was talking to people who didn't have a good conception of defining things. They didn't even know math. They didn't even know how to conceptualize something larger than them or their field or their family. Do you see what I mean? Very regional, very small thinking. So to get them to understand concepts like space, infinity, largeness without being able to see it. How large is large? He used a lot of poetic language, like if you took all the grains of sands of the Ganges and you had a man who could individually take each grain of sand and set it down for every world system that he passed, in other words, more than you can see in the night sky, and he deposited one of those grains of sand, and then he went on to do it again for the next world systems, and so on and so forth until he got rid of all the grains of sand, you would still not have reached the number of years since my enlightenment. Now he's got their attention because now they're starting to think abstractly and unfathomable things. And by doing that, he's stretching their mind, their capacity to conceptualize, to think. Okay? So without going into the whole yada yada yada, just by saying the Ganges is dust particles of the land, he's invoking those more elaborate early teachings of Shakyamuni, and he's using them here. So knowing that, when you read this, You can think, oh, he's thinking about that unfathomable region where we can't even conceive of the reality of something. So right away, if you've studied other sutra, earlier teachings, reading this is much more deeply informed. I'm taking a very simple example here, but this is my point regarding scholarship. This is my point that as you read Nichiren, if you don't study outside of just these organizations who just say Lotus Sutra, in fact, they don't even say Lotus Sutra. They, well, they quite literally do, I guess. Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. Just do that. Well, that again, that's fine, but it's not going to satiate everybody. Most of us in this era are much more inquisitive to varying degrees, of course. So let me go on. Even if one were to use all the water in the oceans to produce sumi ink, and fashion all the trees and bushes of the major world system into writing brushes, one could never finish writing them all. Yet when I examine them and weigh their contents, I see that among all these sutras, the Lotus Sutra occupies the highest place. Okay, so now he's starting to not just give his opinion. Now he's starting to flex a little bit and go, look, I've been studying. I've read all of these sutras. I have read them and considered them deeply enough that I can see which sutras came before others and which sutras don't even belong. Because the sutra that I read um, uh, on some fancy way of writing calligraphy um, doesn't fit into the teachings of the scholarship of what Shakyamuni was trying to transmit to others. It's just not important. It doesn't belong in there. Okay, it doesn't belong in the middle of geometry and trigonometry. It doesn't belong there. So in that way, he was able to say, that's erroneous. That's somebody who's just trying to, be egotistical or push something into this. It may have value, but it doesn't have value within the confines of the teachings of Buddhism. Do you see now? This is scholarship. Scholarship saying these track all of these different sutra, all of these different teachings, all of these different opinions make sense for a certain level of knowledge that builds on or creates that's built on a previous part of this, and there are some out there that are just phony or outright different. They just don't belong in here. Okay, this is the history and the scholarship of Buddhist teaching. So he's saying he himself, all right, not just his opinion, but his study, his scholarship. Next paragraph. Nevertheless, among the various schools of India and in Buddhist circles in Japan, there are many scholars and teachers who failed to understand the Buddha's true intention. Okay, now we're discovering this is what we're after. We're after the Buddha's true intentions. Okay, not just flowery talk about how to make your garden, but how do we feed ourselves? How do we sustain? Nevertheless, blah, 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 some of them declared that the Mahavajracana Sutra is superior to the Lotus Sutra. Others said the Lotus Sutra is inferior not only to the Mahavajracana Sutra, but to the Flower Garden Sutra as well, or that the Lotus Sutra is inferior to the Nirvana, Wisdom, and Profound Secret Sutras. Still others maintain that the sutras each have their distinctive character and therefore possess various superior or inferior aspects. Some said that the worth of a particular sutra depends upon whether or not it accords with the capacities of the people. Sutras that fit the capacities of the people of the time are superior, while those that do not are inferior. Similarly, some persons claim that if people have the capacity to gain the way through the teachings that all things have substance, then one should condemn the teachings that all things are without substance, praising only the former teachings. And the same principle, they said, should be applied to all other situations. Okay. So what does that mean? To some of you, it may be obvious. But basically, he's talking about people's egos here. But anyway, to try to make some order without respect to the order in which they were actually taught. Like Shakyamuni had this problem in his face. The people he was talking to couldn't understand what he was saying. So he had to spend a certain amount of years teaching them a first step. You know, when you teach somebody how to read, you don't throw, high concept. You don't throw Camille Paglia at them and expect them to understand what they're reading. You start with Jack and Jill. You start with really easy to understand, in your face, how to talk about this. And you start formulating the way sentences are structured and what words can mean and do mean and punctuation and all that, right? So to then say to the whole curriculum, yeah, but this is more important. So this is what we'll get when it, by the way, important to note, when he talks about these teachers or these splinter groups that say this is all we need to achieve the way, what does he mean when he says that? What way? The Arhat way? The disciple way? The Pratyekabuddha way? What do all those mean? What way? Well, as we learn from the tremendous amount of Mahayana teachings, the later in the steps teachings from Shakyamuni's own mouth, that the way is the way of practice. So when he says these different teachers are trying to say that this particular sutra or group of sutras is the way to achieve the way, we need to, without information, we would think there's only one way. And of course, that's what these teachers are promoting. But the question is, which way is the one way that they perceive? And it's not until the Mahayana teachings that we start to discover that the way is the way of the disciple, the way of the Pratyekabuddha, the way of Arhats, and finally, the way of the Bodhisattva. In other words, how to practice to achieve attainment, Buddhahood. So the opinions of the way is different for whoever is pronouncing their teachings superior. It's very opinionated, a lot of egos in there, right? So, but if we look to the actual sermons, the actual teachings of Buddhist scholarship, the actual words of the Mahayana teachings, it doesn't take long before we discover very direct confrontations by Shakyamuni himself of what way is superior. And in fact, as you then read in the Lotus Sutra, without any of this background, is that in his discussion with Shariputra, that there are not three vehicles, three ways. There are not three vehicles. There are not two vehicles. There is only one vehicle. And that is the Buddha way. And the Buddha way can only be aspired to fully by the Bodhisattva way. Because the Bodhisattva is the most inclusive practice, which obviously by being that most inclusive practice for self and others and all beings, not just others, but all beings, that practice in achieving the Buddha vehicle is the Bodhisattva way, which is the greatest, most fulfilling, most complete awakening and enlightenment. He doesn't say there's no enlightenment in disciple practice. There's no enlightenment in arhat or pratyekabuddha practice. What he's saying is those achievements, those attainments of their interpretation of the Buddha way is incomplete. It's not full enlightenment because, first of all, those vehicles, those ways are limited to one, to the individual, to the self. And that's not truly the full breadth of the Buddha way. The Buddha way is what Shakyamuni practiced, is what Shakyamuni demonstrated throughout his entire life. It's enlightenment for self and all sentient beings. That's why he started this school. That's why he began Buddhism entirely. That's why he went through 6 years of ascetic practices, self-privations of all sort with different Brahmin sects, trying to arrive at the answer for everyone, all beings, not just for himself. And when he achieved that awakening, he ceased being Siddhartha Gautama and became an apparitional body, a provisional body, simply to act as a bodhisattva, to teach for the rest of his life how to get to this awakening state, how to get completely liberated from cravings, from sufferings, all within our own mind. So it could be achieved while alive. That was his example, and that's what he taught. So to teach that just to be a disciple is enough to get that state of awareness, it's good, but it's not full. To become an arhat and release yourself from all attachments, that's great. That's really good. But it's not complete because you're not doing what Buddhism was first created to do. You're not helping anyone else. Even if occasionally you teach some people, if you don't guide them along the way so that they can get what I'm saying right now, so that they can practice complete awakening, not just for themselves, because we're not separate beings ultimately, but for all beings, that is the true self. That is the objective of this practice from the get-go. The Buddha vehicle, the one vehicle. So right after that, and the main point of this video, because no one among the people of the time refuted such doctrines, these various doctrines, ignorant rulers and officials of states began to put great faith in them, donating cultivated fields to support those who taught them, until their followers grew to be numerous. And once such doctrines had become long-standing, people came to be firmly convinced that they were correct and no longer even dreamed of questioning them. Oops. I think I'm going to jump ahead because there's something I want to say in this video before we move on to part 2. Okay. And I'm going to go back and read those other parts, but I just want to jump ahead because I talked so much about it that I want to quote this writing here. Persons of wisdom should, of course, devote themselves to the study of all 80,000 doctrines of Buddhism and should become familiar with all the 12 divisions of the scriptures. Why does he say this? It's what I've been saying mostly in this video, and that's why I'm jumping ahead to this. Without understanding all of the teaching, it's easy to make mistakes. It's easy to be led by people who are distracting you from the goal, from the one vehicle, from the Bodhisattva way. It's easy because there's so much room when you're reading quantum physics to then start creating mystical physics. Just because there's room in the dialogue, there's so much misunderstood or unsupplemented information that you can plug in your own ideas. So it's precarious. So to practice Buddhism, even if all you do is chant Namu Myoho Renge Kyo, is at some point, I guarantee you, going to raise questions. What am I chanting? What does it mean? Some of you might just be comfortable to chant it, and again, I don't want to disparage you. Doing that will achieve many, many, many ameliorations in your life. So don't let me dissuade you from that. But for a great many, you're going to have questions. And if you don't pursue them, as I just read, you're dissuaded from pursuing your questions just because of the repetition and the demand from superiors to simply acquiesce to what they say. That's tragic. If you have questions, get real answers. And oftentimes you're going to have to do that for yourself. I'm trying to be a bit of that bridge for you to inspire you further to study. If this is as far as you get, I feel a great deal of responsibility to say things accurately, or in a way at least that will inspire you to either not just accept what I say, as Shakyamuni said himself, don't just take my word for it. Don't just follow the words that come out of my mouth. Don't make all of those things objects that you worship, that you believe in. Look for your own truth in this. Take what I say and test it. Go find out and make it a reasonable assumption for yourself that what you're studying, what you're doing, has merit, that it has real value for your life. So the second part of this statement is, but ignorant persons, again, ignorance doesn't mean stupid. Ignorant means you just don't know yet. Nobody's told you, you haven't investigated for yourself. Okay, that part of what Shakyamuni was telling all his disciples to do, study. If you haven't done that, or you're in a position right now that this is just a subject you don't know very much about, if that's the way you live your life or have to live your life, living in this latter age of ours, a time of evil and confusion, right? Anger, greed, should discard the so-called difficult to practice way and easy to practice way that the Nembutsu believers talk of. Nembutsu was a very big concern because by the time Nichiren came around, there was a tremendous amount of as he described earlier, energy of certain followers of either Chan or Zen, or Nembutsu is any of the sutras that are used to say that they are primary or superior to the later teachings of Mahayana, and invoke this mystical being of Amida Buddha. And you hear it all the time in martial arts videos or from people. When you hear them chanting Amitabha Buddha or Amida Buddha, just by chanting his name is supposed to bring you to full enlightenment. It's not. It's a fallacy. And what he's saying is, because that was so prevalent in his day, that they should solely devote themselves to chanting Namu Myoho Renge Kyo, the Daimoku of the Lotus Sutra. So you're saying, even if you're just a beginner, even if you're just starting out and you don't know any better, or even if you practice with these other sects, just at minimum, for your practice of the one vehicle, the Buddha way, just chant the title. Just chant Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. Dedicate yourself to that, and do that day to day, morning and evening. And the rest will come. Your curiosity will build. You'll get more educated, and you will be able, more importantly, to see right through these other esoteric deviations from what is the true intent of the Buddha, the true intent of Shakyamuni's teachings, the true intent of your practice. Okay, makes sense? So I think, and this is the way I'm going to approach future. I'm going to go through a lot of Nichiren's writings, and I think at this point you're ready for them. But I want to break them down that way. Let me know if that works for you. You know, as always, the comments are precious communication from you to me of what you need from me. Let me know. I'm doing this in my own imagination to satiate the questions that I've had and continue to have, and I'm going to continue problem solving to make myself so strong of mind and understanding that I cannot be manipulated. And that's what I'm sharing with you, that process. But I may be missing things you need because, you know, I'm just one man. And I take this practice to my core. And I have a lot of questions that I'm determined to answer. But even though I have a lot of questions, I don't have all the questions. I don't have your questions. I'm quite possibly answering many of your questions through my own path of investigation, and that's what I'm trying to share here. But let me know what yours are, because I know I'm missing some of the things you want to know. Let me know. Comment on the videos. I will get to them. Maybe not today, but I check every day as best I can, and I check through those comments, and I go, oh, that's a good question. Even if it's not a question, even if it's a statement, I'll see something in it and go, oh, I haven't thought about that, or I haven't really talked about that much, or investigated it for myself. So you're going to help me, and you're going to help everyone that I'm hopefully talking to. And I hope this group continues to grow. Tell your friends, anyone who's curious, because I need their input so that I'm offering better, more complete information. And you're going to help me on my path as well. So thank you. Okay. Anyway, I'm going to let you go with that for today. The next one will be less of an introduction and more as I dive into Nichiren's writings. And I may take a respite and go, okay, I need to talk about other sutras, because this is one thing Nichiren does really well. He talks so much about the scholarship and how he's, and previous teachers like Indai and so forth, have corrected or interpreted more clearly for him. I'm following his example, you see, and ultimately Shakyamuni's, is that I'm sharing with you all of my questions and all of the information I'm discovering, and I'm trying to interpret it in a way that makes sense for us modern people, because we speak and think differently. But now, having said all that, you know, what I was about to say is I'll be going back to I'll discover things as I'm rereading this for the umpteenth time, and he'll mention some esoteric sutra that I won't know about, and I'm going to go research it and find out what he's talking about so I can truly understand. Anyway, thank you so much. I don't even have words to thank you. I just really, really appreciate all of you. Okay? Let's get to the bottom of this together and make our practice imperturbable, invincible, so that we are sure to achieve the goal. Nam myoho renge kyo, nam myoho renge kyo, nam myoho renge kyo. Thank you very much. Stop by.